Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Musicals have been a prominent genre of movies since the introduction of talking pictures in 1927 with The Jazz Singer. Throughout the decade, studios like Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Warner Brothers, and 20th Century Fox released multiple musicals annually, pushing musical stars and further increasing profits through song sales. While many of these films have been thrown by the wayside, many others are considered cinematic classics. However, as the decades have continued, the number of musicals has sharply decreased, and the reception to many has been more on the negative side. A genre that originally held Best Picture winners is now filled with remakes of old movies, moderate successes, and musical versions of remakes of old movies. So, why are new musicals struggling, and can they be made better? This video will mainly be talking about live-action musicals for a couple reasons. First, I love live-action musicals. I grew up with Gene Kelly musicals when I was young, and I've generally tried to see as many as I can when they come out. Second, live-action musicals have an inherent disadvantage when compared to other mediums. When working on The Little Mermaid, lyricist Howard Ashman discussed with animators in depth why musicals were better suited for the medium of animation.
Music may have more license in the animated film in the same way that it does in the theater, simply because the level of reality is different. There's no game being played by a theater audience. We know that's happening right in front of us, and it's painted scenery and it's not real. When we go to the movies, it's a real street, or it looks a lot more like a real street, and we pretend it may be really painted.
I think this realism of films does hinder the audience enjoyment of musicals, but that realism can be adjusted the same way we can adjust to superheroes or talking animals or multi-dimensional travel. While what I talk about also has uses in animation and even live stage recordings, focusing primarily on live-action musicals will allow for fewer tangents and clearer examples. I also will not be talking about Disney's live-action remakes because I don't really want to talk about them, and other videos have gone further in that topic than I care to. If you are interested in that topic, Sideways has a very in-depth video that I will link down in the description. Now, what's my answer for how to make live-action musicals work? This is kind of a joke, but when you live in the world we do, it isn't. The simple fact is most Broadway shows have a 7 to 8 figure budget, while live-action musicals have a budget that is 10 times that. Even Dix the Musical, a film many people would consider to be low budget, is on the high end of what Broadway musicals supposedly spend. Long story short, live-action musicals generally have a larger budget, and using that budget to its fullest extent helps with all other points I'll bring up on this video. So what's my real answer for how to make live-action musicals work? Do on screen what you can't on stage. A prominent advantage for live-action musicals is the grandiose of space and the ability to understand it. Let's take a random musical. There we go, The Sound of Music. In the story of The Sound of Music, we have the mountains of Austria, the Abbey, Mother Abbess's office, great naming by the way, the streets of Salzburg, the Von Trapp household with its many, many rooms, a gazebo, the Abbey dressed up for the wedding, the Karlsberg Festival, and a place to hide in the Abbey. As a director, we need to take all of these locations and fit them in here. A confined space with limited room on the sides for set changes, leading to small representations for these larger locations. I am in no way saying that small sets and limited staging is a bad way to solve this puzzle of the stage, I am merely pointing out that it requires a heightened suspension of disbelief. However, with live-action musicals, they are able to use larger, mostly practical sets unconfined by the 3 walls of a stage. Their detail and history are not hindered by their need to be movable, and when the sets are unable to be practical, filmmakers have the ability to expand their scope with once matte paintings and now computer-generated landscapes. All of the items allow for greater scale production that enhances musicals to another level. Now what can enhance a musical on another level? What about another dimension? What? No, I'm not talking about 3D. I can't say how much pre-production differs between the performance of live shows and filming musicals, but I do know that movies have more time during the production. Rather than a full show being performed live multiple times a week, an entire film is made over several weeks or even months of a production. This means that actors are able to focus on the specific scenes that they are filming to make them as good as they can be, instead of performing the entire show in one shot. Hats off to the actors who do that on Broadway as I speak, y'all are doing great. This lengthened production for schedule allows for multiple attempts for choreography, different camera angles, singers and musicians getting to have multiple takes to change emphasis in the music, and needed rest time for performers to give it their all in each scene. This method of production does leave films unfinished, leading to the big difference between live-action musicals and their stage siblings. The simple truths are you can't edit a live show, and animation takes too much time that you have to plan the cuts before you start anything. Film has the unique ability to get multiple takes from multiple places and be able to take all those disparate pieces, get rid of the bad ones, and edit the good ones to heighten them even more. The art of editing can be broken down into 4 different pieces, all of which I'll show through examples in one of my favorite musicals, Baby Driver. Spatial editing allows for the editor to manipulate the size of an area. Major things editors can do is link spaces that were filmed at different places to make them seem like they're at the same location, give characters sight lines to objects that they may not be looking at on set, or making a set seem bigger or smaller than it actually is. Temporal editing allows the editor to manipulate the time and speed in which the film takes place. Major things editors can do is warp speed, either making things in fast speed or slow motion, jump between times with flash forward and flash back, or show 2 things that are happening parallel in time at 2 different locations. Rhythmic editing allows the editor to manipulate the rhythm of the film. The major thing editors do is cut on the beat. Every cut, every transition happens on the beat of the music, further driving the song to the foreground. You can also have faster cuts for more action scenes, or slower cuts for more impactful acting moments. Shocker, when you're doing a musical, you need rhythmic editing. Finally, graphic editing refers to the relationships between the visuals and sounds. This is mainly seen through match cuts and audio matches, where the sound or audio helps smooth the transition, but this can also refer to any graphics used on screen, such as titles, lower thirds, and other non-diegetic visuals. Using techniques can heighten live-action musicals to a degree that the realism that comes with film is as broken as those in theater and animation, while furthering the magic beyond the other 2. Now that I've given my many reasons of how live-action musicals could work, let's look at some examples of modern musicals and how/if they work. For each of these films, I'll give you an overview of the positives and negatives of the techniques used, and then look at one number more in depth to show how editing differentiates them from other forms that musicals can take.
My name is Regina George.
So, the biggest issue with 2024's Mean Girls is the music. Comparative to the stage musical version, the music is much calmer, there isn't as much difference in instrumentation between the songs, they cut songs, and, at least with a couple of the performances, their musicality is either lacking or being overcorrected through auto-tune, like poor Emma Watson. It is hard to do a good live-action musical when the musical portion is failing, but let's see what they got right. Firstly, I would say that a lot of the musical sequences are really good. The choice to make each song feel like a music video separates the musical portions from the rest of the films, but they look good. They utilize time, space, and the $36 million budget they had to good use, allowing for elaborate set pieces and fun visuals. The garage openings and closings are fun bookends, the transition to the school is a lot of fun, and the whole of Someone Gets Hurt and I'd Rather Be Me are great musical sequences that really show off the talent of the cast. But there's one number in particular that showcases the best of Mean Girls 2024. World Burn starts with a strong use of spatial editing and framing to make it seem Regina is putting Katie in the burn book, that is, if you haven't seen any other rendition of Mean Girls, and then throughout the song utilizes temporal editing to create a parallel sequence between Regina at her house, in the school, and this weird school solo dimension. Throw in some cool match cuts like this, and the graphic add-ons of social media and glitches, and this sequence is a really fun and creative choice on what otherwise is an awkward retelling twice baked from its original source.
I can hear the harbor bell. Land ahoy!
Hear me out. This is a really fun movie. It's a very limited musical, meaning it only has 10 songs in its approximate 2-hour runtime, with one of them being a reprise, and 2 of them being from the 1971 film it's sort of a prequel to, but I felt like it was worth talking about because it's one of the only original movie musicals that has come out recently that I have seen and that I care talking about. What to say, the music is good. They don't do anything exceptional with it, and there are some phrases where the auto-tune stands out, but it is memorable and can get stuck in your head. The sets are well made and larger than what you can do on a stage. That being said, I would love to see Wonka be turned into a stage musical just to see how they changed it and put in all those things in there. The performances are great, and it seems like the director Paul King had a strong vision that came through in a fun romp into a world as geographically ambiguous as its predecessor. The specific number I'll point out here is You've Never Had Chocolate Like This, which is a musical montage of Wonka distributing illegal chocolate and avoiding the police. If you haven't seen Wonka, it sounds strange, but don't worry, it's a heist film. It being a montage, it already messes with temporal editing, but it also uses graphic editing to enhance the world, and uses CGI and spatial editing to pull off this really fun transition. all of this culminating in a giant dance sequence on this large set that looks spectacular. Now for something not so spectacular... This is a short one because I've not seen it other than the trailers and YouTube videos talking about it. I'll say I think it's fun that we go to all the different cat locations, like the train and the Mungo, Jerry, and Rumple teaser houses. If you want any more information on Cats or Les Mis, I highly recommend these two videos by Sideways. Once again, he's really good, in the description. Now it's time to talk about the main director responsible for this video, Jonathan Murray Chu. Chu's last two films were both musicals, and with Wicked for Good releasing later this year, he's the most experienced musical director I'll talk about in this video. On top of being a strong filmmaker, Chu understands the needs for musicals and how to amplify them from their stage counterparts. Firstly, he works with the original songwriters to better understand the themes and ideas behind the stories, and then he works to create immersive, engaging, physical sets that help the audience be transported into the world of the musicals. For his first musical, In the Heights, I'm going to showcase each dimension of editing through a different number, because I think it has the best examples out of all of the musicals we've talked about. Starting off with this elaborate pool set in 96,000, spatial editing is heavily used to make these shots that were filmed at separate times with different actors appeal to happen at the same time at the same pool. The best spatial editing shot I'd say is probably right here, where we transition from this kid to the underwater dance sequences and then back out to the big area. Even though you can tell that they don't match up exactly, they give the overall feeling of being in the same space. The entirety of Paciencia y Fe is a flashback/warped time bubble that takes place in a very short window of time, showcasing the entirety of Abuela's life growing up in Washington Heights. The only thing I can really show to emphasize the use of rhythmic editing is... And in It Won't Be Long Now, graphic editing is used to first show a time and space jump to downtown, and at the end create these long fabric rolls falling down the sides of the buildings, showcasing Vanessa's want to go larger than she can at the moment. In the Heights really shows off how an especially grounded musical can be done well in the modern day as a movie. Also, the framing of the entire movie as a flashback leads further into that suspension of disbelief, because if you have someone narrating the story the entire time, why can't they also all sing it? But with all that being said, let's get into the real reason I made this video. I'll start by saying, I'm not a big Wicked fan. I knew the general idea of the story and seen Twisted, shout out Team Star Kid, but I hadn't watched any slime tutorials or listened to any songs besides Defying Gravity before I watched it in theaters. Let me tell you, watching it in theaters was a treat. Basically, all of the major pieces I've talked about before was all over the marketing campaign for the film. Their use of elaborate set pieces, the time and care taken for the performances and the costuming, and the ability to use CGI and digital effects to enhance the world of Oz farther than you can on stage has been talked about over and over and over again. There's not much that I can say that hasn't been said before, but there is one number that I don't think can be gushed about enough, and it's the one that when I watched it for the first time thought, now, this is how you make a movie musical. Starting out, all of these characters and dancers absolutely kill it throughout the number. All of their movements are on beat and shows how much work they put into it, and it was worth every second they did. We start with these rhythmic cuts that go into the split screen, constantly cutting between close-ups and wide shots to give the singer at the moment the prominence while also paralleling each other. There's a lot of match cuts in the sequence to really drive home the relationship between Elphaba and Glinda, and also easing the transition between very different locations. Throughout this number we jumped at several locations, as a montage does. We start in Elphaba and Glinda's room, then transition to this cafeteria, and then into this classroom location, and finish it off with this color guard looking space. So far, it's a pretty normal montage sequence, but then we go back. We jump between these 4 locations 11 times in the last 30 seconds. The epitome of parallel editing between both time and space. On top of that, each of these locations has completely different choreography and spacing, meaning for the last 30 seconds, there were 3 different dance numbers that were edited together to the point that we, the audience, don't get to see all the work that went into each one. This is something entirely separate that you could not do on a stage, and then you can only do it in the movies. And it's a testament to how hard those performers worked to get this sequence made. I love movies and I love musicals. I'd love to at some point be a part of making a movie musical, but for now, I'll keep watching the new ones that come out and hope that they use their mediums to good use. That's all I got for today. Sorry it's been a while since my last video. I'm hoping to go on a more monthly release schedule. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and hopefully see you in October.